Hey all, based on the past conversations with some of the deep tech founders, the likes of Arvind from Tonbo Imaging and Shrinath from Agnikul, we received a huge interest in bringing more eminent founders from the field of AI and robotics. We heard you and we looked around to see who are the movers and shakers in the field. Not too far away, we came across a company that is revolutionizing kids' learning through the use of deep tech and AI with their personal robots for the kids. I'm thrilled to be joined by Sneh Vaswani, co founder and CEO of Miko, building the personal AI robots for kids. Hey, welcome Sneh, welcome to Switching Gears.
Thank you. Thank you, Subodh. Nice to meet you.
Likewise, and glad to see that we share the same alma mater, IIT Bombay.
Yes.
So let's start by taking you down the memory lane to your college days. Could you talk about what academic program did you pursue at IIT and how was that experience?
So I did my BTech and MTech in metallurgical engineering and material sciences with specialization in metallurgical process engineering at IIT Bombay from 2008 to 2013. And this was a dual degree program. And so I think one of the most finest of experiences that could come out of it, but yeah, from the academic side, that was the qualification and degree. Yeah,
Fabulous. I was in the similar program, dual degree in mechanical. So I think अपना थोड़ा बस time का delta है. I was there 2002 to 2007.
correct.
That's great. So when did your entrepreneurial path started? Were you already thinking about building your venture while at college, or did it start afterwards?
I think the passion for robotics started more than entrepreneurial. I would say the enterprising mindset was there since much earlier of doing something, building something, and solving a problem, and that kind of mindset was there probably when I was in my 7th grade. And tab se wo mindset was very strong, and that was actually the trigger point of getting into robotics. Was somehow, I know that's quite an early year, but thankfully some episodes in life got me attracted to robotics a lot, and that burning desire started from there itself. And being at IIT Bombay, the flame grew bigger and bigger, so finally this was all thanks to our former president, Sir APJ Abdul Kalam, and following his work before he became the president of India, and getting into the thought process was, as he was a missile man, we wanted to build mechatronic systems that could achieve a certain objective on flight and so on. And that got attracted, following his work, that got attracted me to IIT Bombay. And at IIT Bombay, learned the specifics of robotics, which were beyond my academic path of metallurgical engineering, but I had to take in additional time and effort to pay attention and learn about this. And that's what me and some like-minded folks like myself, we all came together and put in our time and effort to gain skill sets across different domains in electronics, computer science, mechanical, materials, and try to solve problems through the IIT years. That's how it all started at that time.
Fabulous. And really glad to hear you were clear from pretty early on in your life. Like you said, class 7, standard 7, right? When you got interested into robotics. So could you share a little bit specifics? How was that exposure? Was it in the school that you got that kind of exposure? Because I would love to know, as a father of a 4-year-old, how to start giving him that exposure.
So I think I had absolutely zero idea of engineering at that age. Very little idea of engineering, but there was always a desire of building something similar to achieving certain goals, like Sir Abdul Kalam. And he was, 6 months before he turned president, he was visiting IIT Bombay to do to give a speech, and I didn't know what IIT Bombay was. So I had read in the papers, and I requested my father that I want to attend the speech because I've read his book Wings of Fire, and I follow it like a Bible. It's so inspiring, and I want to attend a speech given by him. So he took me from right after school. We sat on a cab, and we reached IIT Bombay campus, and I was the youngest one in Convocation Theatre listening to him, and all the IITB students were there on campus at that point of time listening to him and asking him questions. This was just before he became president, and that sheer inspiration of watching, and the reason why he was there on campus is because it was Tech Fest. And Tech Fest had organized a speech from Dr. Kalam at IIT Bombay, and when I came out of Convocation Theatre, there was a whole display of there was an exhibition of different kinds of robots on display, and every student from outside the country or outside India or even within IIT Bombay had come together and exhibited their work in robotics. And that's where I was in the queue standing in the exhibition after his speech, and I was supercharged. And that exposure, like that moment, was, I would say, the tipping point where I said that one day I'll be on the other side exhibiting my robots, and I want to be here, and this is the place where I want to study. So it wasn't everyone is doing engineering, so let's do engineering. It was like that moment and that instant was something that's what that this is what I want to do kind of moment that struck in, and then that's how the preparation and the thought process started towards getting there. And then gradually that small spark of attending that Tech Fest at that point of time just grew bigger. In the first year, when there were, you know how we had competitions at IIT, local tech GCs to local teams. And at your time, in 2002 to 2007, you had some very solid folks. You had Ashish Bhatt, you had Siraj Asani, who used to win Microsoft Micro Mouse and these kinds of competitions at Tech Fest. So I used to land up at the mechanical engineering lab when they were in their final years, and trying to take some guidance and inputs from them on what can be done. And so how can I learn? I'm in metallurgy and not in that department, but I want to learn. And then gradually you form your company of people who take you on that path, and then you follow as your seniors, and they show a path. And then you meet professors. I used to walk into control systems department, into electronics department, into computer science department, and tell them, and actually land up at a lot of courses which were outside my something that I didn't get credits for. I just used to go and attend because there was this inclination to learn and do something. And so with that, we formed a team of almost 20 people at IIT who were in another department of engineering, but had a lot of interest in another department of engineering. And then we used to come together, form a common goal, which was a highly interdisciplinary goal, and then try to achieve. You work round the year for that. Then that required raising funds, because this wasn't like initially it wasn't a sponsored project of IIT. It was more a bunch of sophomore students or third year students coming together to do something. And so we used to raise CSR funds from companies, and it was initially budgets for 3 lakh, 10 lakhs, then it grew to 25 lakhs, then it grew to 1 crore. So we used to raise funds every year, build a robot, participate in an international or a national competition, and represent IIT Bombay, represent India. And the same team and the same enthusiasm continued to grow. And so I'm fortunate that the team members who I had became my co-founders, and the team of juniors who started passing out, they came and joined us at Miko. They've been with us. Some of them have been with us for more than 8 years now, and the journey is going on here.
That's fabulous to hear, and you definitely brought back so many memories of mine. I remember there was Yantriki event within TechFest, and it was fabulous. We made some robots while being there, and then ASME competitions used to be there.
Correct.
And that's great.
And he was organized by Professor Amarnath.
Yes, he was our department's dean that time. Then I think he became dean of student affairs, I recall.
Correct. He's been my role model and guru when it comes to robotics. Like I used to land up in his office and he used to open doors and so I just spoke to him, I think 2-3 weeks back. I'm still in touch with him, keep sharing updates. We invited him for the launch of our second product, Miko. So yeah, I mean, thankfully, yes, it's been like great to have professors like him.
That's wonderful. I was where I'm really glad is that you went out of your way. Being from another department, you showed so much interest. For me, it was so the dual degree program that I had was mechatronics, and Professor Amarnath was in charge for it. So we did this one project wherein we made a fishing rod for disabled people. We had to make there was some ASM problem statement, and yeah, that was a fabulous time learning from him. He's pretty strict, so I must say almost everyone used to be quite feared in the class, but some of the lessons he taught are incredible. Like, even though I'm not into the field anymore, but still I recall and remember.
Absolutely. I think that's true. I mean, there were these set of professors at IIT, Professor Amarnath, Professor Arya from aerospace, took a lot of interest in physical hands-on building. Professor Leena from system controls, and yeah, so Professor Khosla from metallurgy, he became my guide, and he allowed me to do in my dual degree master's thesis. He allowed me to take up control systems projects and be that. So he said, just follow what you want to do, and like you're so thankful that IIT gives you that ecosystem of letting you do what you really want to do. If that is inclined towards academics or engineering, then literally all doors are open for you. Like that's the beauty of it.
That's true. And then starting from there, Sneh, you were interested into robotics and you formed a core group of friends, like-minded people. From there on, how did the idea for Miko, an AI assistant for kids, how did this idea originate? What was the inspiration behind it?
So I think first and foremost, it was important that we get 3 opportunities to do some sorts of internships at IIT Bombay after second year, third year, and fourth year. I wanted to take exposure into a very large corporate MNC and see how large, complex engineering projects are done. I worked at Siemens for 1 summers in Bangalore in corporate R&D role. Then I wanted to work in a proper startup, which is doing some very solid work in engineering, and see how the grind that an early stage startup goes through. So joined Robotics in Bombay at that point of time, and wanted an academic experience on how it is to work under a very renowned professor on an academic problem statement. So worked in ETH Zurich under the guidance of Professor Rafael D'Andrea, and after all of that, when we noted down all the experiences, we said, yes, I think if someone really needs to solve a complex problem at scale and deliver monumental impact and be in the driving seat of driving that impact, a startup is the only way. In a large corporate where the strategy of the corporate keeps changing very quickly or in a certain direction, then you get the freedom to execute, but within the boundaries of the corporate that you are in. And in a startup, the world is your space. Like you can innovate in any direction that you want to, and so before getting into a startup space, specifically if you're entering into some deep technology areas and so on, then you should basically be getting some experience of how it takes to run a corporate, even at a smaller scale and so on. So then all of us, we took a call that let's take up some jobs and get some experience, and then we'll quit one day and we'll call each other in a couple of years, and then we'll say we'll quit and start a company at that point of time. But then that journey came in much sooner. Within 1 year of joining corporate, I was at Siemens, my colleague was at Altair, the third one was in Polaris, and so after getting that experience across different domains, we said, guys, I think let's jump onto this sooner, and let's jump in the sea and learn how to swim ourselves as it goes. We can always come back to corporate life if something doesn't work out, but we realized very soon that you need to go 24/7 into what you want to do, and quitting your job and jumping onto it is the only way to do it. So we realize that as if your goalpost is not an easy one, it's a very complex problem, then your first year or two may be purely conviction driven, and you're not building a business like an A of B, like this is a company in some part of the world and you're trying to replicate that. If you're trying to create something new, you're walking on an uncharted territory. So you would need a lot more conviction, patience, and time to get there. Before you start raising capital and jump on the flywheel of fundraising, you need to be sure of ensuring that the direction in which you're headed after doing all the iterations, then you go out raising capital. So all of us, we knew that it would be at least a 2-year haul before we actually start raising capital, and it would be purely on conviction until then. So thankfully, uh, my co-founders and myself and the early team that we had sufficient conviction on what we were doing. For the first 6 months, we just spent time piloting. We came from a complex deep tech domain, so we naturally got a lot of affinity towards doing something in oil and gas and defense. But we realized that very quickly, within a month of meeting all large clients and so on, we realized that it's not just technology that helps build a business. Technology helps you scale in a business, but technology won't necessarily just get business to you. I mean, business and sales and marketing play an equal or more important role when it comes to even deep tech businesses. So with that learning, we felt that we decided, let's get on a multi-decade building journey from here, and start building really solving unmet needs of the society by building a consumer business, and then gradually, maybe a few decades later, we can get into defense and oil and gas and such kinds of areas. In the consumer space, we felt that it's easier to build the balance sheet over the first 4 or 5 years, and with that thought process, we started looking for consumer problems to solve. And within the first 4 to 5 months, the whole problem statement of Miko came about through a lot of qualitative surveys of interacting with a lot of families across Bombay, and meeting parents and getting to understand how parents think, how kids think. We were actually meeting all segments of the society and just trying to have conversations. And the child problem statement came about very evident and glaring, not only in documented reports, but also our qualitative discussions with families. And that's how Miko was born. So.
Amazing. Really great to hear this entire journey of how the idea originated, how you specifically zoomed into this specific idea. And I must say, you have built Miko into a global brand for the personal AI assistants for kids. And sometimes I envy that kids got their AI assistants before the grown-ups. uh, Typically for parents, they're very careful about what they want their kids to get exposure to, especially when it gets to technology. A lot of the edutech ventures that we have seen, they struggle because parents don't want screen time.
Correct.
So in the case of Miko, it's not about the screen time, but were there any other inhibitors that might have put a pressure on you, that the parents are feeling shy away, they're shying away from giving this product to their kids? Or were there any kind of maybe tailwinds, right? Because there were some learning elements involved in it. So
Correct.
if you could walk us through that.
So I'll tell you how the whole concept germinated and so on, and what were the key learnings from early pilots. First and foremost, childhood has seen a massive change in the past decade, where kids of today have which I call the eyeball shift, where kids have moved from conventional mediums of engagement into much more technology-driven mediums of engagement. Today, a child has enormous amount of opportunities come distractions in day-to-day lives than what it was with our case. But while those opportunities have grown, there has been a consistent decline in social emotional learning levels of kids. Kids of today have much lesser attention spans. Their reading levels have fallen down. They don't read as much as a generation back kids used to read. Physical activity has come down. Globally, the mental wellness challenges that kids are facing is on the high, because the way the society is shaping up, anxiety and depression is on the rise for very small kids, which is quite alarming. It's almost 20% in the western part of the world. On the social skills in COVID actually have come down. Now, in such a situation, a parent of today where both the parents have started working and there's a rise of nuclear family concept. In such a situation, parent of today wants to ensure that they're doing their best as a parent because the income on hand has grown. So they're trying to ensure that they are able to give as much or more time to their kids as much as their own parents gave to them. But with the way the work-life balance and everything is moving, most parents rely on different such modalities to engage kids. How do you engage a child in today's day and age? And you have a 2-year-old, you said you would be thinking of ways how to engage the child on a day in, day out basis. What we saw in that situation is that yes, parents despised giving screens to kids at a very young age. 92% of parents did. But when you ask parents the same thing, do you want your kids to completely cut off from tech? 80% of them said no. Every other child in the classroom has access to it. I don't want my child to feel left out. So that thought process got us to understand more, where we saw that screens are generally a perceived distraction. They are not a real distraction in the growth journey of a child. There's enough reports where they've said that 100 kids through a lot of screen time versus 100 kids completely without screen free. After a few months, the growth is at the similar levels and so on for those kids and so on. But parents generally have a concern that, hey, let's try to avoid screens at early ages, which most parents have that concern. We felt let technology come in where technology plays a role in understanding a child, being able to profile the child, being able to come up with new experiences for the child and take the child on a path which is apt fit for that child as desired by the parent. So for example, if a parent feels that I want to improve my child's physical activity or try to grow the physical activity, the robot would then focus on those areas by playing those games with the kids, which will drive physical activity and come back with a report card on how well the child did. So if a platform or an ecosystem could be built that can assist a parent in their parenting and become like a companion to the child through the early years of childhood from 4 to 8, which is the most important period of shaping a child, then there is real value add that technology can bring in, because most of the technology tools don't guide children on a certain path. They've been designed for the child to just use them and take it on a path. Like for example, you could take a gaming console and you could play on it for the next 3 days, but the gaming console is not going to automatically control your gaming window or suggest games to you which are right for you at that age, or take you on a path based on your mood and so on. So that's what we wanted to do. We felt let's build a technology platform which can do that and tailor those half an hour, 1 hour that the child spends with the product into something which the child enjoys, but at the same time, the child is taken on a path which is desired by the parent through meaningful conversations, through games and other activities and so. So with that thought process, Miko was started. So primarily there were no challenges in the sense where you are since the only challenge was at the initial stages was how do you communicate what you are doing, what you stand for. And you stand for helping parents raise kids in the modern world, and where your user is the child, buyer is the parent, both of them have to be happy, and you are building a completely new category product. So in that perspective, the communication had to be spot on and should cover a broad section of the society rather than a very narrow section of the society with your offering. And that's what we focused on through a very iterative process. So after the first product was ready, for 1 year, we were literally doing door-to-door selling. It was just 2017 to 18. It was in Bombay. We were a team of 4 or 5 sales guys, including myself. We used to go at home, like our water purifier salesman used to come some few years back, where they used to come at home, show the demo, install a water purifier. We used to go at home, show the product, give a demo, speak to parents, understand explain what we are trying to do, and then try to make a sale happen. Once we got that, and then we started going all out in marketing. We went into retail stores, we went into online, and gradually started growing 30% month on month with the communication that was clicking with audiences. And that's how the whole category build-up happened.
What an incredible journey, Sneh. Really insightful. So on this journey, the early parts of venture building are always difficult, and more so when you are integrating hardware and software, right? So, like if you could share some aspects of building a hardware business, like early on, what does it take? And specifically, would love if you could touch upon the funding element as well, because funding comes relatively easier for software ventures, even though it's always difficult. How was that process for you? Because you guys took almost 2 years, you guys gave yourself to zero in into what products you want to build, right? To identify a certain niche areas, to work on the technology. But what after that, and how did you go about fundraise?
I think first and foremost, hardware is hard. It's very hard. And I think it's more perception. And unfortunately, the fundraising industry is driven by a lot of perception. It may all absolutely be possible because the general perception is you have to look at a history of how many billion-dollar companies are there in a certain sector, and then you start picking good companies trying to do something similar. Now, we knew that fundraising in our kind of journey will be tough because we were ticking almost every red flag of every VC at an early stage sector. Oh, there's hardware. Oh, there's a new category. Oh, and there's no established price point. Is there a product market fit? It was purely empirically, and it was a combination of empirical data plus conviction that was being built out in the whole product and the growth. So you needed investors who would take an initial leap of faith and at the same time support the company through the journey and so on. So if you are building a hardware business, getting the right investors on your cap table is extremely important because if an investor, like I've seen some of my friends who raised money from investors where they've got an impatient capital at the outset and the whole company gets in a very tough spot in the next few rounds. But thankfully, at Miko, at our cap table, we've had probably the best set of investors when it comes to a hardware business and if you're trying to build a company out of India. So like for example, the first set of investors were friends and families who helped keep the company afloat in the first 2 years. And then we had some serial entrepreneurs and angel investors who've been operating entrepreneurs who've built multiple businesses and they've seen what it takes to build a long-term business and so on. They backed the company in the first angel round that came about. From an institutional perspective, I think we've always prioritized sales. When you're building a deep tech or necessarily a hardware business, the biggest fear that most investors have is, will this company meet the timelines of execution? Because the meter is ticking the minute capital comes into your company. So almost 70 or 80% of hardware companies don't meet their timelines. I think that number may be 90%, but a delay could mean a complete holiday season delay and so on. But with Miko, what we were very clear is that business and the business focus should never be lost in terms of the scale, in terms of the goals that we've set, and we go to any extent to meet them. So year after year, quarter after quarter, when investors are seeing that the sheer resilience of how we are scaling, and if we've said we'll get there in 2 quarters time and we get there in 2 quarters time, then that builds in enough amount of confidence in investors. So I think for most hardware entrepreneurs out there, it's very important that you set a certain milestone 3, 4, 5 quarters down the line, which that milestone should be venture fundable. That growth should be appealing enough for a venture investor and for their IRRs, and that you hit them. So once you hit them once, twice, and thrice, and you maintain continuous touch with your investors, then you are bound to get backing. And so just saying that, oh, next year I'll be shipping 1 million units and assuming that the capital will come, and once the capital will come and then you will start getting to 1 million units, that doesn't help. I think people can very well see through that, and so therefore it's very important that you are able to hit every goal that you've committed And if there's a variance from that goal, you're able to explain it. And what you've done to address that variance is also important. So I guess for any hardware entrepreneur who's fundraising, if there are 1,000 investors to fund a software company, then probably there would be 20 investors to fund a hardware company. That's the kind of ratio that you would find, and so on. So therefore, you should absolutely be very particular of the investor who you're welcoming on your cap table. And if they have a sizable stake above 5% or so, then they should be completely aligned with what you're trying to do. And that's very important.
Got it. And in terms of the growth, like you said, for hardware and software ventures, very different trajectory the two could be, right, in the early parts. For software venture, what we have seen is the growth expectations for any venture funded startups tend to be pretty high, like probably in 40-50% month on month, right? Like, are there some benchmarks for hardware businesses as well? Are there similar expectations?
So I think first and foremost, I think you are mixing two aspects here. Software companies who are SaaS companies and their growth metrics are very different. For a hardware business, there are certain pros of the whole thing, but yes, a typical hardware business, according to me, for it to be venture backable for the early years, it should at least be doubling its revenue year on year minimum. That is, at minimum, is what you should aim for as a business, and keep maintaining that path at least until you get to your 100 million revenue mark.
Got it. And specifically for Miko and the segment in which it plays, Sneh. So kids toys categories tend to be pretty competitive because there are vast amount of toys in any category, let's say STEM or any other learning tools. How do you differentiate Miko in that manner within the segment? Because what I've seen and what I've heard from my circle, right, people tend to have pretty high regards for Miko products. So, but curious, like, what are you doing behind the scenes to create that differentiation?
Yeah, so I think the way to differentiate yourself is that we are not a toy company, and we are very, very particular about that because I'll tell you what's the major difference. Most toy brands focus on getting into the customer's home, and that's the end of the journey there. They will then try to build a new product and focus on the next holiday sale to get into the customer's home again. Our actual journey starts with once you get inside the home, that's where the real journey of Miko starts, on what kind of value you're bringing in the life of the child. What is the literally, whether children are playing with Miko or learning from Miko on a week-on-week level, on a month-on-month level, on a year-on-year level, and how many kids continue to use the product after 6 months, after 12 months, after 1.5 years, and so on. So we have from our team size of employees, I would say that almost 60% of people are focused on the product. 67% of employees are focused on the product development, from which I would say that nearly 75% of that 67% employees are focused on retention and engagement, which is how our children engaged with the product, and what is being we see Miko more like a media company, and just like a media platform, like an OTT platform, knows your likes and dislikes and recommends to you on the certain time of the day content which is relevant to your viewing patterns, or something which fits your persona as a viewer. That's the kind of focus that we have, and we see ourselves more like a media company on steroids that takes robotics and AI to understand the user and deliver services to them which could be appealing to them. So that's the thought process that makes it stand out completely different.
Got it. That's fabulous. And a lot of developments are happening off late in AI, like with OpenAI and other large language models, right? Creating enormous amount of innovation. So how do you see those innovations playing in the context of Miko, and how do you see Miko evolving in the coming years?
I think first and foremost, these technologies are not new, and they've now come a lot in the public domain per se, but there's been a lot of work happening on them in the past few years itself. So we were very well aware of a lot of areas that are being developed. And so therefore as a company, we've put in efforts on certain areas of AI, which specifically is towards open-ended, long-form discussions, plus emotional intelligence. These are two specific areas when it comes to kids where we've trained our models and gotten better and better over the past 8 years. And we feel that a lot of developments like ChatGPT and other areas that have come in will just complement our tech stack further. And what we've built, we'll further add more pillars into our tech stack. And basically those pillars will basically be common for all the AI companies. So if from if from the experience elevation that would come from any new development would be common for all the companies, it's very important that each AI company identifies a certain niche and ensures that all the users, like the terabytes of data that you get every month, is probably training certain models of a certain niche area of AI where you want to have expertise on, and rest everything else you can club together and move forward. And so I think there will be a lot of consolidation of technology stacks across all companies where the latest innovations will become part and parcel of life, but then they will no longer be standout differentiators, say maybe a year or two later. Your standout differentiators in your product will be the ones that are proprietary to what you built, and you maintain your focus on those and keep improving them better and better. That will what will cause your product to stand apart. And for each such AI company, based on the problem they're solving, based on the segment of the society, based on the user, based on the buyer, each of them will have to identify their own niche.
Got it. And in what ways are you looking at within Miko product? Like, are there any examples you could share how you plan to use AI further?
So I think today when you use the whole idea is that by 2025 or 2026, Miko would be in a position where it could actually teach a child completely and get there. And we see that the technology infrastructure plus the AI infrastructure would get there. So we are heavily focused on the EI aspect of it, and long form conversations with the child, and using an amalgamation of the content and other generative technologies and third party content and so on. A truly personalized learning platform can be built for kids, because our scale would help us get into 10 million homes by then, 2027ish onwards. And as a result, a 1:1 ratio of student teacher ratio would be doable.
Incredible. And really would look forward to you guys growing to that scale fast enough, hopefully even before 2027. Lovely chatting with you, Sneh, and thanks for sharing everything, so many insights about Miko. Wish you all the best in further growth.
Thank you so much, Subodh. Thank you so much.